Okay, so today we're talking about the letter I, which represents the square root of -1. And we're basically just moving some of these variables and numbers around to make them more friendly. So we've been playing around with these. We're going to do the easy stuff today. So remember to set your calculator so that it can speak complex numbers. So go to Mode and then highlight A plus BI so that you've got your imaginary numbers ready to go. All right, so your calculator will do two of these. So what we've done, you put in the square root of -49 in your calculator, you're going to get 7i. All right, you put in the square root of -64 in your calculator, you're going to get 8i. Now you run into a little trouble because 7 is not a perfect square. So the only thing you know that you can do is at least move this negative out and put that I on the outside, and then keep the square root of 7. And then from there you decide, well, will any of these perfect squares go into, oops, I messed up a number, go into our number 7? Well, so far none of those go in, so it's pretty much prime. So it's not going to go in. So that's the only way you can leave that answer. But at least you get the I in front of the square root. All right, that's what they look like when you graph them, and they look pretty cool, but there's a lot more to it. So let's go on. So simplify this as a complex number. Now this can be done in your calculator because this is a perfect square right here. If it weren't a perfect square, you would not be able to do it all by yourself in the calculator. It would have to go and be simplified, but we're not going to get with that too much today. So let's go and simplify this out. So we've got 5 comes down, and then you can just put that in, or you can go, well, you know what? The square root of 36 is 6, and because this is a negative underneath, there's my answer. And remember, your real number has to be written first, and then your imaginary number has to be written second. All right, let's try another one. Make sure you can find I on your calculator. It's the second decimal point. All right, go ahead and put these in your calculator and then test to see if you got the answer right. I'm going to go ahead and pause so that I can put the answer in. Okay, so if you put those in the right way, you should have gotten these answers in purple out. I'm not going to go too much into it with it, but remember you're just adding your real numbers together. 4 and 2 makes 6. And then you're just going to add your imaginary numbers together. 3 plus -1, or 3i plus -i, makes positive 2i. All right, let's go on to do something else. Now, again, you can do these in your calculator for the most part. Let's get it to a point where we can maybe see if we can simplify this. So remember, just copy your real number down, and then because you have a negative under the radical, that's going to be an I in front. You haven't done anything with the square root of 3, so let's just leave the square root of 3 there. So you still basically have 2 and a 2, and you also have square root of -3 was really just I square root of 3. So you keep them in the same order, and then you just go ahead and make sure everything copies over the same way. All right, let's try the next one. Now this will go in your calculator. You can just go ahead and pop that whole thing in your calculator and see what you get, because that's a perfect square. So you're going to get 7. You're still going to have a subtraction sign just like you have here. And then this is going to be a 6i. And that's it. All right, let's go on. Those are your answers to your work you did the other day. If you need to see them again, hit pause. There's some more answers. If you need to see those again, hit pause. And you got them right there. All right. And I think they're right. Yep, they are. All right, so now let's talk about multiplying complex numbers. So when you multiply them, remember the magic is getting to I squared. Put I squared in your calculator. When you square I, you're going to get -1. All right, and that is exactly what we want to get. We've got an imaginary times an imaginary. So you're basically squaring an imaginary, and you're going to get a real number. which is what we want to do. All right, so this is something to memorize, write down, put somewhere where you can remember that. Okay, so let's try multiplying these together. You can multiply them in your calculator if you like. You can multiply them by hand. I'm going to multiply and get 6i squared. But now I remember I squared is -1. So 6 times -1 gives me -6. Put that right in your calculator and you can see it. All right, how would you put that in your calculator? Well, let me clear this out. I'm going to do 2 and then my second decimal times 3 second decimal. So I've got 2i times 3i. Should get -6. There it goes. All right, so let's go back and see what else we've got here. All right, so try this one. Put that right in your calculator if you like, or you can go and multiply it out. I got 2i plus 10i squared. I'm doing the math here because I don't want to go back to my calculator. All right, that's plus 10 times -1. So that's all going to turn into -10 plus 2i. Remember, you got to do your real and then your imaginary. And that's your answer. All right, try another one. Now you can multiply all these out and work them out. This was basically FOIL, what you get. All right, so I'm going to pause it so that you can go and see what you need to do. And then I am going to have the answer up for you because it's going to take too long. Okay, so these are the answers you should have gotten. When you put it in your calculator, it just basically puts it all in the right order for you. It foils it, it cancels things out, and it does it all for you. All right, let's go on and talk about some other things. Now, because these are perfect squares, you can put these right in your calculator. All right, I'm not going to put it in the calculator because some people actually want to see what it really does. So this is 5 plus 6i. And then you're going to multiply it by 4 minus 2i. Now, at that point, you can put that in your calculator if you want, or you can go through and actually FOIL it. All right, I'm going to get 20 minus 10i plus 24i minus 12i squared. All right, so now that's going to give me, what's that going to give me? These two are going to add together and get 32. And then we're going to get plus 14i. I think I'm right. I hope I'm right. All right, let me check one more time just to be sure. Minus 10i plus 24i minus 12i squared. Okay, all right. So let's go on. Talk about absolute value. This is brand new, okay? Absolute value of a complex number. You have not done that. This is actually, the absolute value is actually the distance from the origin. All right, so the distance from the origin, I never really actually showed you a graph of an imaginary number, but it basically runs like an x and y plane, and -2y just goes down what looks like a y-axis and goes down there. So how far is that from the origin? Well, it's 2 little jumps. All right, so there's a way to do that, and it would involve a distance formula. We're not going to get too much into that right now, so you can put this in your calculator. All right, so let me go ahead and show you how to do that. So we're going to do absolute value. So how do you find absolute value? You do math. You're going to go over to NUM, and the very first option is absolute value. And we're going to put in -2, and then second decimal to get our I. And then we have to press the key that makes it go over to the right to get out of that. Go ahead and hit enter, and there you go. It's 2. So the absolute value, or the distance from the origin, is 2. It gets a little more complicated when you have something like this, because technically, all right, that's your imaginary plane, and this is your real plane, even though it looks like an X and a Y. You're going over 5 and up 12. You're way up here. You could either use the Pythagorean theorem to figure that out, or the distance formula. But because we have this special capability, we're going to save a little time, and we're going to just put it in our calculator. So go ahead and plug that into your calculator. I'll go ahead and plug it into mine. So math, go over, hit that. 5, what was it again? Plus 12i, plus 12 second decimal. Go over. There you go. It's all set. You just hit that there. And it's 13. Oh, I should have known that. That's a Pythagorean triple. Anyway, so the answer is 13. Okay, they don't always come out so nice and pretty. All right, so here's what you're going to do for the day. You're going to get a worksheet from Mr. Job. And on page 65 of the worksheet, which is what I call the front side, that's the reteaching side, you're going to do number 1 through 15 all. It's pretty much the entire front side, okay? There's some examples for you, but you can just do 1 through 15. Then you're going to turn it over to the back side, which is the practice side. Okay, so on reteaching, you're doing that. Practice, you're going to turn it over, it's page 66. Those are your absolute value problems. So that's the new stuff. So you can work on that today. When is this due? Oh, this is due today. Now, you can hold on to it if you like, but I'd rather you turn it in and then let Mr. Job give it back to you tomorrow. All right, have a great day, and I will send you something else tomorrow.